Rain, mahogany, blood money on the table, and a maid who knew 17 ways to kill everyone in the room. The Korean Mafia boss was supposed to take the port deal. 50 million reasons to shake hands and walk away. Instead, Choi Gi-hoon's eyes found the trembling woman in the corner, the one his rival kept drugged and desperate, and everything changed. One sentence, 4 words. I want her instead. What Dominic Vane thought was a joke became the beginning of a war. Because the maid he sold for nothing? She's subject 0. The ghost who doesn't miss. And she's got 48 hours before her body shuts down. Welcome, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. If you've been riding with me, you know we don't do boy meets girl here. We do Mafia King meets the government assassin hiding in a maid's uniform. We do the kind of chemistry that requires a ballistic vest and a safe word. And if you're new, buckle up, because you're about to witness a collision between a woman with 48 hours to live and the tiger of soul who just made the deadliest purchase of his life. He thinks he bought a broken servant. He has no idea he just brought a sniper into his bedroom. This isn't just a romance. It's a kill switch. Hit that like button like it's the trigger. Subscribe because your obsession starts right now. And smash that notification bell because in this world, silence gets you killed. Now, let's watch a $50 million negotiation fall apart, starting with 3 simple words. I want her. The glass decanter was baccarat crystal. Kelsey knew because she'd memorized the mansion's inventory during her first week. Every object catalogued, every value assessed, every potential weapon identified. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she poured. But beneath the starched black uniform, her body was at war with itself. The tremor started in her left hand, subtle, a frequency only she could feel. 47 hours since her last dose, the neurosuppressant vein called vitamins was burning out of her system, and when it finished, her nervous system would follow. She didn't have time for this negotiation. She needed to be 3 buildings over, rifle assembled, eliminating the man currently sitting at the head of this table. But Vane had summoned her specifically for this meeting, and refusing meant questions she couldn't answer. The penthouse stretched 60 feet across, glass walls revealing San Francisco's glittering sprawl below. Rain attacked the windows in sheets, distorting the city into an impressionist painting of light and shadow. Between her and freedom sat 12 people. Vane's security detail, his accountant, his lawyer, and the man everyone called the Tiger of Soul, Choi Gi-hoon. Kelsey had studied his file when he first arrived in San Francisco 6 months ago. 34. Heir to the West Coast Syndicate. Classically trained in 3 martial arts, fluent in 5 languages, and rumored to have orchestrated the disappearance of 7 rival operators without leaving enough evidence to fill a thimble. The photographs in the file hadn't prepared her for the reality of him. The way he occupied space. The stillness that suggested violence held in check. He sat across from Vane now, a study in controlled elegance. Charcoal suit that probably cost more than most cars. Dark hair swept back from a face all sharp angles and sharper focus. His hands rested on the table, relaxed but ready. Hands that had killed. She recognized the signs. The port territory, Vane was saying, sliding a folder across the mahogany table. Full operational control. 50 million annually, minimum. All I need is your word. You'll stop interfering with my shipments through Oakland. Gi-hoon didn't reach for the folder. His eyes tracked Kelsey as she moved along the wall, refilling water glasses nobody was drinking. She felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Assessing. Measuring. It wasn't the usual male gaze she'd learned to ignore. The one that saw a black woman in a servant's uniform and made assumptions. This was different. Surgical. Your people have been careless, Gi-hoon said, still watching Kelsey. His English carried the precise diction of someone who'd learned the language in boardrooms and battlefields. 3 shipments intercepted in 2 months. The feds are circling. Isolated incidents, Vane said dismissively, which is why I'm offering you a generous partnership. Take the port. Increase your revenue stream. Everyone wins. Kelsey reached the sidebar where a second decanter waited. The tremor spread up her forearm. She had to clench her teeth to steady her grip. 2 days, maybe less. The withdrawal would start with tremors, progress to seizures, then cascade into complete nervous system failure. She'd researched the drug extensively, Vane's proprietary blend, designed to keep operatives docile and dependent. He'd been dosing her for 3 years. Behind her, Vane's head of security, a bull-necked man named Micah, made a sound of disgust. Can't even pour a goddamn drink without shaking. Pathetic. The words barely registered. Kelsey had endured worse, was currently enduring worse. The real problem was that Micah had noticed the tremors, which meant others would soon. She needed to eliminate Vane tonight, withdrawal or no withdrawal, before her window closed completely. Perhaps the maid needs a break. A woman's voice cut through the room. Marie, Vane's second-in-command and rumored mistress. Though Kelsey suspected the relationship was more strategic than romantic. Marie had positioned herself beside Gi-hun, her body language aggressively territorial. Red dress, red lipstick, red nails that drummed against the table edge. She's fine where she is, Vane said without looking at Kelsey. Pour the wine. Kelsey approached the table with the Chateau Margaux they'd opened specifically for this meeting. $14,000 a bottle. She knew because she'd helped inventory Vane's cellar last month, while planting surveillance equipment behind the vintage Bordeaux collection. She reached for Marie's glass. The tremor intensified. The red wine splashed across white linen like arterial spray. The room went silent. Are you fucking serious right now? Marie's voice could have etched glass. She shoved back from the table, wine spreading toward her dress. This is a $4,000 Valentino. My apologies, Kelsey said flatly. No emotion, no fear. The same tone she'd used reporting kill confirmations to her handlers 5 years ago. Your apologies? Marie's laugh was razor sharp. She turned to Gi-hun, one hand landing possessively on his shoulder. This is what Vane tolerates. Incompetent help who can't perform basic tasks. If she worked for me, she'd be out on the street. Her fingers traced down Gi-hun's arm, nails dragging across expensive fabric. Someone like you understands quality, I'm sure. The importance of surrounding yourself with excellence. Kelsey kept her expression blank, but her mind was working. Marie's positioning was deliberate. She wanted Gi-hun's attention, his alliance, possibly his bed. The negotiation had a subtext Vane either didn't notice or didn't care about. Gi-hun removed Marie's hand from his arm with the same clinical precision he might use to remove a weapon from an opponent. Not hostile, just final. His attention shifted fully to Kelsey for the first time since she'd entered the room. The impact of his gaze was immediate and disorienting. This close, she could see the darkness in his eyes wasn't just brown but layered, bronze and amber and something older. Something that recognized what she was hiding beneath subservience and starch. His gaze dropped to her hands. To the tremor she couldn't quite control. Then lower, to the telltale callus on her right index finger. The one that marked thousands of hours on a trigger. Kelsey's pulse spiked. Nobody noticed that callus. She'd filed it down, treated it, hidden it deliberately, but Gi-hun's eyes lingered there for 3 seconds too long, and when his gaze returned to her face, she saw the calculation behind his expression. He knew, not everything, but enough. Enough to recognize that she wasn't what she appeared to be. Shall we conclude this? Gi-hun's voice cut through the tension, but he hadn't broken eye contact with Kelsey. Vane laughed, the sound harsh and satisfied. Eager to get started with your new territory? Smart man. Yes, let's finish this. You take the port, my shipments go through unimpeded, and we both make money. Simple. You offered me anything, Gi-hun said slowly. Each word deliberate. To end our disagreement. Anything I wanted. Is that offer still valid? Vane spread his hands magnanimously. Within reason, of course. Money, territory, business opportunities. Name it. Gi-hun's gaze finally released Kelsey. He turned to Vane with the same measured calm, but something in the air had shifted. Some decision had been made in that extended moment of silent assessment. I don't want the port, Gi-hun said. The room seemed to inhale collectively. Marie's hand froze halfway to her wine glass. Vane's confident expression cracked slightly, confusion bleeding through. Then what? Vane asked. The dock warehouse rights? My Sacramento connections? What are you playing at, Gi-hun? Gi-hun stood. The movement was unhurried but drew every eye in the room. He crossed to where Kelsey stood beside the sidebar, approaching with the same measured intensity a predator might use closing distance on prey, or on an equal. He stopped close enough that Kelsey could smell his cologne, something subtle with notes of cedar and smoke, close enough that she had to tilt her head slightly to maintain eye contact. She didn't step back, couldn't. Her body had locked into a stillness that was half paralysis, half predator's freeze. Her, Gi-hun said, not looking away from Kelsey's face. I want her. The maid. Not the port. Not the money. Her. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense with shock, with confusion, with the sound of power dynamics rupturing and reforming in real time. Then Vane started laughing. Deep, genuine amusement that built until tears gathered at the corners of his eyes. Micah joined in, then the lawyer, then the security detail, a chorus of mockery that filled the glass-walled space. The help? Vane gasped between laughs. The broke-down, trembling maid? Gi-hun, I thought you were serious. I am. The two words cut through the laughter like a blade through silk. The amusement died. Vane studied Gi-hun with new wariness, searching for the angle, the trap, the hidden play. She's nobody, worthless. She can't even pour wine properly. Why the hell would you want? That's not your concern. Gi-hun's tone held no room for negotiation. You offered anything. I'm choosing her. Do you stand by your word? Or do I tell the other families that Dominic Vane's promises are meaningless? The threat hung in the air. Vane's reputation, his entire operation, depended on the sanctity of his word. To refuse now would be to admit weakness, to signal that his negotiations were worthless. Vane's eyes narrowed. He looked at Kelsey. Really looked at her. For the first time in months, she kept her expression neutral, empty, the perfect mask of a servant who'd learned not to expect better treatment. Whatever Vane saw satisfied him. He shrugged, dismissive and cruel. Take her. She's yours. Hell, I won't even charge you a finder's fee for the uniform. His smile was mean. Consider it a gift. Maybe you can train her to do something useful, though I doubt it. Marie's face had gone from red to white to red again. You cannot be serious. Her? Over an actual business partnership? Over. She gestured at herself, fury and wounded pride making her voice shake. She's nothing. She's mine now. Gi-hun extended his hand toward Kelsey. Palm up. An offer, not a command. We're leaving. Kelsey's mind raced through possibilities. This was wrong. All wrong. Negotiations didn't end this way. Men like Gi-hun didn't refuse 50 million for a maid. The only explanation that made sense was the one that terrified her. He'd seen through her cover. He knew she was Subject Zero, or suspected, and wanted to leverage that somehow. But she was out of time and out of options. Vane's pills were locked in a safe she couldn't access alone. Going with Gi-hun gave her 47 hours to figure out a new plan. Staying here gave her maybe 24, before the withdrawal became visible enough that Vane realized his pet sniper was trying to escape. Her hand found his. His palm was warm, his grip firm but not constraining. He kept hold of her hand as he turned back to Vane. The territories you wanted in Seoul, Gi-hun said. Consider them yours. Payment for her. He gestured with his free hand. Pulling a slim tablet from his inside pocket, he tapped the screen once, executing a transfer that flashed green. 50 million. Transferred to your Cayman holding account. Verify it. Vane took the case, opened it, and his eyes went wide. Whatever was inside satisfied him more than Kelsey's departure ever could. Pleasure doing business, Gi-hun. Though I still think you're insane. Perhaps. Gi-hun guided Kelsey toward the elevator with the barest pressure on her hand. She moved with him, hyper-aware of every eye tracking their exit. Of Marie's furious tears. Of Vane's satisfied smirk. The expression of a man who thought he'd just tricked someone into taking his trash. The elevator doors closed, sealing them in brushed steel and silence. Gi-hun released her hand. He pressed the button for the garage level and then stood perfectly still, watching the numbers descend. Kelsey's mind cataloged exit strategies. The elevator had an emergency hatch. She could disable him with a strike to the throat, climb out, disappear into the building's infrastructure. But her body was unreliable now. The tremors, the time limit, and something else. Something about the way Gi-hun had looked at her. Not with lust, not with cruelty, with recognition. The doors opened onto the underground garage. Rain echoed through the concrete space, drumming on metal and stone. A black Mercedes waited in the loading zone, engine already running. Gi-hun opened the passenger door and waited. Kelsey slid into leather seats that felt like being wrapped in expensive armor. The interior smelled of rain and cedar and possibility, the scent of a life that wasn't hers, had never been hers, but was being offered anyway. Gi-hun entered the driver's side and pulled into traffic without speaking. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and streetlight. Each block took them farther from Vane's penthouse, from the pills that kept her functional, from the life she'd spent 3 years infiltrating. The silence stretched taut as wire. Kelsey knew interrogation tactics, knew how silence could be used to make subjects uncomfortable, make them talk, make them reveal information they'd planned to protect. She also knew how to resist, how to sit in silence until her interrogator broke first. But this wasn't an interrogation. This was something else entirely. She turned to study Gi-hun's profile. Sharp jawline, scar above his left eyebrow, thin and old. His hands on the steering wheel showed the same controlled tension she felt in her own body. He was coiled tight, ready to react to threat from any direction. They crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, the suspension cables disappearing into fog thick as cotton. The city fell away behind them, replaced by the dark sprawl of Marin headlands. Why? The word escaped before Kelsey could stop it. Before she could calculate whether asking made her seem weak or curious or desperate. Gi-hun's hands tightened on the wheel, leather creaking under pressure. The muscle in his jaw worked like he was physically restraining words. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled, but threaded with something she couldn't quite identify. Because I know what it looks like when someone is dying slowly. He didn't look at her. Kept his eyes on the road, on the rain-slick asphalt unwinding ahead. And I know what it looks like when someone is dangerous but pretending not to be. Kelsey's breath caught. I don't know what you're... Yes, you do. Now, he did glance at her just for a second, but it was enough. Enough for her to see that he absolutely knew. Maybe not everything, maybe not her real name or her history, but he knew she wasn't a maid. I saw the callus on your trigger finger. I saw the way you mapped the exits. I saw someone surviving, not serving. The admission should have terrified her, should have triggered every escape protocol she'd ever learned. Instead, it settled over her like a strange sort of relief. To be seen, to not have to pretend, just for this moment. And what do you plan to do with me? Kelsey asked. Now that you've bought someone who isn't what she appears? Gi-hun's smile was small, dark, edged with something that might have been respect. I haven't decided yet. But I know what I'm not going to do. He took the exit toward the coastal cliffs, toward whatever estate waited in the darkness. I'm not going to let you die. The Mercedes climbed winding roads that cut through redwood forest, fog drifting between ancient trunks like ghosts. Kelsey's hands trembled in her lap, no longer from fear or withdrawal alone, but from the weight of a choice she hadn't expected to have. Trust the Mafia boss who'd seen through her disguise, or trust the withdrawal that promised certain death. When the estate emerged from the fog, all glass and steel and warm light spilling from tall windows, Kelsey realized she'd already made her choice. Made it the moment she'd taken Gi-hun's hand in Vane's penthouse. Now she just had to survive long enough to see if it was the right one. The estate rose from the cliffs like something carved from shadow and glass. Kelsey pressed her palm against the cool window as they approached, cataloging defensive positions through the fog. 3 floors, east and west wings, too many windows to cover alone. The architecture was beautiful in the way predators were beautiful, all clean lines hiding lethal purpose. Gi-hun pulled into an underground garage that smelled of concrete and motor oil. The silence between them had solidified during the drive. becoming something almost tangible. When he opened her door, his hand appeared in her peripheral vision. An offer, not a command. She ignored it, stepping out on legs that trembled with more than withdrawal. 45 hours remaining. The elevator rose in smooth silence, mirrors on every wall, multiplying their reflections into infinity. Kelsey watched Gi-hun's face in the glass, searching for tells. His jaw remained set, his breathing controlled. Whatever he intended for her, he was patient enough to wait. The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse that stole what little breath she had left. Where Vane's space had been all cold marble and intimidation, this breathed warmth. Hardwood floors the color of honey, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the Pacific stretching endlessly into darkness. Furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive, though she suspected it was both. An older woman emerged from a side corridor, her silver hair pulled into an elegant knot. Her eyes were kind, shrewd, missing nothing as they assessed Kelsey's trembling hands and hollow expression. "Mrs. Kang," Gi-hun said in Korean, then switched to English. "This is Kelsey. She'll need the East Wing prepared. Medical supplies, privacy." Mrs. Kang bowed slightly, her gaze flickering between them with questions she was too professional to voice. "Of course, Mr. Choi. This way, dear." Kelsey followed the housekeeper down a corridor lined with abstract art, bold slashes of color that made her think of arterial spray and shattered glass. The room Mrs. Kang led her to was larger than any space she'd inhabited in 3 years. Cream walls, a 4-poster bed dressed in linens that looked impossibly soft, French doors opening onto a private balcony where fog rolled in off the ocean like living smoke. "The bathroom is through there," Mrs. Kang gestured. "Fresh towels in the cabinet. I'll bring up some clothes that should fit. Are you hungry?" Kelsey's stomach was a knot of anxiety and chemical need, but she shook her head. Food would just come back up once the next wave hit. "If you need anything." The intercom is beside the bed. Mrs. Kang's expression softened with something that looked like pity, which Kelsey hated more than cruelty. "You're safe here." The words hung in the air after she left. Safe. Kelsey had forgotten what that word meant. She moved through the room with professional efficiency, checking exits, testing window locks, searching for surveillance equipment. Nothing. Either Gi-hun was careless, unlikely, or he wanted her to feel unwatched. Another manipulation, probably, but one she'd use. The bathroom was a study in minimalist luxury. White marble, a tub deep enough to drown in. She caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Dark circles beneath her eyes. Black skin that looked dull and drained of life, losing its usual richness under the harsh lights. The uniform hung on her frame like it belonged to someone else. She needed to move, needed to act before the next tremor hit, and she lost mobility. Kelsey stripped off the uniform, left it pooled on the floor like shed skin, and pulled on the silk robe hanging behind the door. It smelled faintly of sandalwood and something else. Gi-hun's scent. This was his room, or had been. The implication made her pause. He'd given her his space. Why? Focus. She needed his biometric data to access Vane's servers, steal the antidote formula, and disappear before the withdrawal killed her. Simple extraction. She'd done harder infiltrations. Kelsey moved through the quiet penthouse, following the sound of ice against glass. She found Gi-hun in what could only be his study. All dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books in Korean, Japanese, English. He stood at a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. He'd removed his jacket. The white shirt beneath was rolled at the sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars she recognized. Knife work, close quarters combat. He turned as she entered, his dark eyes tracking her movement across the room. In the low light, he looked younger, or maybe just less guarded. The weight of command had eased from his shoulders, leaving something more dangerous. Curiosity. "You should be resting," he said. But there was no command in it, just observation. "I needed to thank you." Kelsey kept her voice soft, submissive. The role she'd perfected under Vane's roof. "For everything. I don't understand why you chose me. but I'm grateful. Gi-hun studied her with that unsettling intensity, like he could see through flesh to the calculations beneath. Are you? Yes. She moved closer, into the orbit of his space, close enough to smell whiskey and cedar, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Is there anything I can do? To show my appreciation? The offer hung between them, weighted with implication. Kelsey watched his face for the predatory gleam she'd seen in so many men, the moment they thought they'd won. Instead, something like disappointment flickered across his expression. Sit down, Kelsey. He gestured to the leather chair facing his desk. When she hesitated, he added, Please. She sat, hyper-aware of the silk robe's thin fabric, the way it revealed more than it concealed. Gi-hun settled on the edge of his desk, close enough that she could count the flecks of bronze in his irises if she wanted to. Give me your hands, he said quietly. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but she needed him off balance, needed him vulnerable. Kelsey extended her hands, palms up, trying not to think about the tremor that made her fingers twitch. Gi-hun took them carefully, his touch warm and calloused. He turned her hands over, studying them with the focus of someone reading a language only he understood. His thumb traced the callus on her trigger finger, the one she'd tried so hard to hide. Who broke you? His voice was barely above a whisper, not an accusation, a question asked by someone who understood what breaking looked like. I'm not broken. The words came out harder than she intended. No. His eyes met hers, and something in that gaze made her chest constrict. You're sharp enough to cut, but someone tried to shatter you first. Kelsey pulled her hands back, pulse hammering. This wasn't how the play was supposed to go. He was meant to see her as weak, desperate, pliable. Instead, he was seeing her, actually seeing her. The whiskey, she said, nodding to the glass on his desk. Can I have some? Gi-hun poured her a measure without comment. She took it, letting her fingers brush his as she accepted the glass. Chemistry hummed between them, undeniable and dangerous. Kelsey brought the whiskey to her lips, drinking just enough to taste the burn, then added the powder she'd palmed from the first aid kit in the bathroom. To new beginnings, she said, handing the glass back. Gi-hun accepted it, his gaze never leaving hers as he drank. She watched his throat work, watched him finish the whiskey in 3 long pulls, watched him set the empty glass down and return his attention to her with that maddening composure. You drugged it, he said calmly. Kelsey's blood went cold. No. Yes, you did. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Rohypnol probably. Maybe something custom. It won't work. Why not? Because I built up immunity years ago. He reached out, tucking a strand of her braided hair behind her ear with a gentleness that felt obscene given the context. I was drugged by better killers than you, little bird. Though I appreciate the effort. Kelsey's mind raced through escape protocols, the balcony, the elevator. How fast could she move before her legs gave out? Relax. Gi-hun's hand settled on her shoulder, a light pressure that somehow rooted her in place. I'm not angry. Then what are you? Curious. He stood, moving to the wall of windows overlooking the ocean. His reflection was a ghost in the glass. You're dying. You could have begged for help. Instead, you tried to drug me. Why? Because begging was weakness. Because trust was suicide. Because every person who'd ever promised to help her had left her bleeding in the dark. I need the antidote formula, Kelsey heard herself say. Truth, instead of strategy. Maybe the withdrawal was affecting her judgment. Vane keeps it on a private server. I need your security clearance to access it. Gi-hun turned, and the look on his face was unreadable. You were going to steal it and run. Yes. Even knowing you have less than 2 days to synthesize a cure. Yes. Silence stretched between them. Then Gi-hun did something that shattered every assumption she'd built about him. He smiled, not cruel or mocking, genuine, like she'd just passed a test she hadn't known she was taking. I'll help you, he said. Kelsey stared. Why would you? Because I recognize a soldier when I see one, and soldiers deserve better than dying in enemy territory. He crossed to his desk, unlocked a drawer, and withdrew a small device. "This is my biometric access key. It'll get you into any system I can access. Take it." She accepted it with numb fingers. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing tonight." His gaze held hers, intense and somehow tender. "Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk. About Vane, about what you really are, about why my stepfather tried to kill you 5 years ago." The room tilted. "How did you—" "Subject 0. Gi-hun's voice was soft, almost reverent. "My father used to tell me stories about you. The ghost who never missed. I didn't believe them until tonight. When I saw you calculate the wind in a moving car." He paused. "Be safe, little bird. Whatever you're planning, be safe." He switched to Korean for the last sentence, the same phrase he'd murmured in the car. A prayer. For her. Kelsey's vision blurred. Not from withdrawal. From something more dangerous. She stood, forcing her legs to hold, and returned to her room. The access key burned in her palm like a brand. She should use it immediately. Should hack the servers, steal the formula, disappear into the night. Instead, she sank onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the ocean's endless rhythm beyond the glass. Somewhere in the penthouse, Gi-hun moved through his own nighttime rituals. She could feel his presence like a gravitational pull. The tremor started in her left hand again. Spreading. The room dimmed at the edges, shadows creeping in like living things. 44 hours. But for the first time in 3 years, Kelsey wasn't sure if she wanted to run anymore. Morning arrived, wrapped in fog so thick it erased the world beyond the windows. Kelsey woke disoriented, her body a symphony of pain. The tremors had progressed to her core, making her muscles clench and release in rhythms she couldn't control. Sweat soaked the sheets. Her vision swam, doubled, corrected. 42 hours. She forced herself upright, legs shaking as they found the floor. The access key sat on the nightstand where she'd left it, accusatory in its unused state. She'd meant to hack the servers last night, had planned to be gone before sunrise. Instead, she'd fallen into a sleep so deep it felt like drowning. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Mrs. Kang entered with a tray, coffee, rice porridge, sliced fruit arranged with artistic precision. "Mr. Choi asked me to check on you," the older woman said, setting the tray on the side table. Her eyes caught on Kelsey's trembling hands. "You're unwell. I'm fine." "You're clearly not." Mrs. Kang's expression softened with maternal concern that made Kelsey's throat tight. "Should I call a doctor?" "No doctors." The words came out harsher than intended. Doctors meant hospitals, meant records, meant questions she couldn't answer. Mrs. Kang nodded slowly, too understanding. "Mr. Choi is waiting for you downstairs. He says there's somewhere you need to go." She paused at the door. "He's a good man, dear. Better than most who walk his path. You can trust him." Could she? Kelsey dressed in the clothes left in the closet. Dark jeans, a black sweater, boots designed for running. Tactical choices disguised as casual wear. Her reflection showed a woman hovering on the knife's edge between functional and falling apart. She found Gi-hun in the garage, leaning against the same black Mercedes from the night before, though the engine sounded different. Upgraded, armored. He straightened when he saw her, his gaze cataloging every detail of her deteriorating state. "You look worse," he said bluntly. "Charming. Honest." He opened the passenger door. "We need to move. Vane knows you're gone by now. He'll be hunting." Kelsey slid into the seat, hyper-aware of how her body protested every movement. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. A location even Vane doesn't know about." Gi-hun pulled out of the garage, the engine's purr a contained growl. "One of my safe houses on the peninsula." They drove in silence through streets, still quiet with dawn. The city looked different in this light, softer, more vulnerable. Kelsey watched Gi-hun's hands on the wheel, remembering how they'd held hers last night. Gentle despite their capacity for violence. "You didn't use the access key," he said, eyes on the road. "I fell asleep." "You could have left?" "I know. Why didn't you?" Because exhaustion had won. Because something about his penthouse had felt safer than any extraction point she'd scouted. Because when he'd called her little bird, it hadn't felt like an insult. "I'm not sure," she admitted. Gi-hun's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. "Honest. That's new for you." Before she could respond, the world exploded. The first shot shattered the rear window, spiderwebbing the glass into abstract art. Gi-hun reacted instantly, jerking the wheel, accelerating into traffic. Kelsey's head snapped back, her seatbelt locking across her chest as the Mercedes fishtailed. "Down!" Gi-hun barked. But Kelsey was already moving, muscle memory overriding her body's protests. She twisted in her seat, scanning for shooters through the fractured glass. 3 vehicles, black SUVs, professional formation. Not Vane's crew. This was military precision. Another shot punched through the passenger window, missing her temple by inches. The sound was catastrophic in the enclosed space. A crack that left her ears ringing. Gi-hun swerved onto the approach ramp for the Golden Gate Bridge, the Range Rover's engine roaring. Wind screamed through the broken windows, carrying the scent of ocean salt and gun smoke. Kelsey braced against the door, her vision tunneling with adrenaline and withdrawal. Her body was shutting down at the worst possible moment. "My men are on the bridge," Gi-hun said, voice tight with focus. "We just need to." The lead SUV rammed them from behind. Metal shrieked. The Mercedes lurched forward, tires fighting for traction on wet asphalt. Through the fog, the bridge's iconic towers emerged, like red sentries guarding the passage between worlds. Gunfire erupted from multiple angles. Kelsey counted muzzle flashes. 3 shooters per vehicle, 9 total. Gi-hun's security detail returned fire from positions along the bridge, but they were pinned down, outgunned. "There's a rifle in the trunk," Gi-hun said, his voice carrying an edge she hadn't heard before. Not fear, calculation, Shaytak intervention, custom modifications. Kelsey's heart kicked against her ribs. "How did you—" "Later." He yanked the wheel, positioning the Mercedes behind a concrete barrier. The relative safety lasted 3 seconds before bullets chewed through their cover. "Can you shoot? Could she?" Her hands trembled violently. Her vision swam. She had maybe 30 seconds of functional motor control before her body rebelled completely. "Yes," she lied. Gi-hun's eyes met hers, dark and impossibly calm in the chaos. "Then do what you do best, Subject Zero." The name landed like a physical blow. He knew, had known all along. Kelsey kicked open her door, using it as a shield as she scrambled to the rear. Bullets sparked off metal, whining past her head close enough to feel the displaced air. She popped the trunk, and there it was. The Shaytak intervention, matte black, scope calibrated to specifications she'd written herself 5 years ago. Gi-hun hadn't just acquired a sniper rifle. He'd acquired her rifle, her specifications, her weapon. She assembled it with shaking hands, each movement a fight against her body's betrayal. Bolt, magazine, scope. The familiar weight settled against her shoulder like coming home. 800 meters to the lead SUV. Wind at 15 knots from the west. Fog reducing visibility to 60%. Withdrawal reducing her to 40% functionality. The math was impossible. Kelsey breathed. 1 breath, 2. The world narrowed to the scope's crosshairs. She found the lead driver through the windshield. Watched his mouth form words she couldn't hear. Saw him reach for the radio to call in reinforcements. Her trigger finger trembled. The crosshairs drifted. She'd never missed. Not once in 6 years of operational history. But she'd never been dying either. "Kelsey." Gi-hun's voice cut through the chaos, steady as bedrock. "I trust you." 3 words. Absurd in their simplicity, devastating in their weight. Kelsey stopped fighting her body, stopped trying to force the stillness that had been beaten into her through training. Instead, she remembered what her first instructor had taught her, back before the eclipses had found her, before Subject Zero had been born. "You are not the rifle," Master Yun had said. "You are the breath between shots. You are the pause. Find the stillness in motion." The tremor became a rhythm. She tracked it. 1 breath, 2, 3. At the apex of the 4th breath, between heartbeats, The world stilled. She fired. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. The shot echoed across the bridge, a singular thunder that silenced everything else. Through the scope, she watched the driver's head snap back, watched the SUV veer wildly, clipping the bridge railing before flipping in a spectacular cascade of metal and glass. The other vehicles scattered. Gi-hun's security detail pressed their advantage, driving the attackers back into retreat. Silence descended, broken only by the wind and the sound of Kelsey's ragged breathing. She lowered the rifle. Her arms were numb. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. She sank against the Mercedes bumper, the weapon clattering to the asphalt beside her. Gi-hun grabbed the rifle by the barrel, tossing it into the back seat before hauling her into the passenger side. Gi-hun appeared in her narrowing field of vision. He crouched before her, his hands cupping her face with a gentleness that felt impossible given what had just happened. 800 meters, he said, shaking his head. Through a moving window. That shot shouldn't have been physically possible. Kelsey tried to laugh. It came out as a wheeze. Never, miss. No, you don't. His thumb traced her cheekbone, wiping away sweat or tears. She couldn't tell which. Subject 0. The ghost who walks through walls and leaves no trace. The legend my father told me about to scare me into excellence. Not a legend. Speaking was becoming difficult. Just a woman. You're extraordinary. Gi-hun lifted her with careful strength, carrying her back to the passenger seat. The world blurred and refocused in nauseating waves. She heard him speaking rapidly in Korean. Orders to his men. Coordinates for a new location. The engine roared. Motion returned. Kelsey's head lolled against the seat rest, her body surrendering to the withdrawal's relentless advance. Stay with me, Gi-hun commanded, his hand finding hers. Squeezing, anchoring. We're almost there. Stay with me. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But darkness was creeping in from the edges, patient and inevitable. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness claimed her was Gi-hun's voice, steady and fierce and closer than it should be. I won't let you die, little bird. Not after this. Not ever. Kelsey surfaced from darkness to the sensation of being flayed alive from the inside out. Every nerve ending was on fire, every muscle locked in spasm. She tried to scream, but her jaw was clenched too tight, teeth grinding hard enough to crack. The sound that emerged was animal, raw, and broken. Hold her! A voice. Male. Unfamiliar. Hands on her shoulders, her legs, pressing her down against something soft. A bed. She was on a bed in a room she didn't recognize. Dim lighting, concrete walls, the smell of disinfectant, and something medicinal that made her gag. A safe house, but not the one he'd mentioned. Another wave hit. Her spine arched, every muscle contracting simultaneously. The pain was exquisite, a symphony of agony conducting her body without permission. She was drowning in her own nervous system. Kelsey. Different voice. This one she knew. Gi-hun. His face swam into focus above her, features carved from stone except for his eyes. Those burned with something that looked like fear. Listen to my voice. Focus on me. She tried. God, she tried. But the hallucinations were starting. The walls breathed. Shadows moved with predatory intent. In the corner of her vision, she saw Master Yun, her first instructor, his throat slit and bleeding. Saw her team from the eclipses, dead on the tarmac where they'd been ambushed. Saw Vane's smile, wide and terrible, as he held up the pills that had become her chains. Not real, she gasped. Not real. That's right. None of it is real. Gi-hun's hands framed her face, turning her attention back to him. What's real is this room. This moment. Me. Focus. Can't. Another convulsion ripped through her. She felt her bladder release, shame flooding through her along with the urine. Pathetic. Disgusting. Weak. Get out! Gi-hun snapped at whoever else was in the room. All of you. Now. Footsteps retreated. A door closed. They were alone. Kelsey felt tears leak from the corners of her eyes, hot and humiliating. This was what Vane had reduced her to. Not the trained killer. not subject zero. Just a woman pissing herself while withdrawing from a drug she'd hated every day but had been forced to swallow to survive. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Don't." Gi-hun's voice was fierce. "Don't you dare apologize for this. For what he did to you." He lifted her with careful strength, carrying her toward a doorway she hadn't noticed. A bathroom, clinical and white. He set her down in the tub, fully clothed, and turned on the shower. Warm water cascaded over them both, washing away the evidence of her body's betrayal. Kelsey sobbed, great, heaving gasps that shook her entire frame. Not from pain, though that was present and overwhelming. From the sheer indignity of being this helpless in front of someone who'd seen her make an impossible shot just hours ago. "I've got you." Gi-hun's hands were steady as he stripped away her soiled clothes with clinical efficiency. No lust, no judgment, just care. "I've got you, little bird." The nickname undid something in her chest. She'd been so many things in her life: asset, target, ghost, subject zero. But little bird? That was something else, something softer than she'd been allowed to be. He bathed her with a gentleness that felt obscene given their circumstances, washed her hair, cleaned the vomit she didn't remember producing from her skin. Through it all, he spoke to her in low, steady tones, mixing Korean and English in a cadence that felt like a lullaby. "When I was 12, he said, soaping her arms, "my stepfather locked me in a freezer for 3 days. Punishment for disrespecting him at a business dinner. I pissed myself on the second day. Thought I'd die of shame before hypothermia got me." Kelsey's eyes opened, focusing on his face through the water's veil. "My father found me before it was too late. Held me while I shook and cried and apologized. You know what he told me?" She shook her head, unable to form words. "He said survival is never shameful. Whatever you have to do to survive, whatever your body does to keep you alive, that's not weakness. That's evolution." Gi-hun's thumb traced her jaw. "You survived 3 years under Vane. You kept your mind intact while he poisoned your body. That's not weakness, Kelsey. That's war." The convulsion that took her then was different, not pain, something closer to breaking open. She reached for him, her trembling fingers finding his wrist and holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. He turned off the water, wrapped her in towels that smelled of cedar, and carried her back to the bed. Fresh sheets, soft blankets. He dried her carefully, then dressed her in clean clothes. His clothes, she realized. A t-shirt that hung to her thighs. Sweatpants she had to roll at the waist. The withdrawal, she managed. "How long?" "My doctor says 72 hours for the worst of it. Then another week for your nervous system to stabilize." "Don't have. A week." "You do now." Gi-hun sat on the edge of the bed, his hand finding hers. "I have 3 chemists working on synthesizing the antidote. My chemists analyzed the breakdown products in your blood. They've synthesized a temporary stabilizer. It will keep you alive and functional. But the permanent cure? The formula to reverse the nerve damage? Vane keeps that on an air-gapped server. We still need to get it." Kelsey stared at him, trying to process through the fog of pain. "Why? Why what? Why are you doing this?" Each word was an effort. "You don't know me." "I know enough." His expression shifted, revealing something raw beneath the composure. "I know Vane kept you drugged and compliant for 3 years. I know my stepfather, Senator Jonathan, ordered your team killed and framed you for treason. I know you've been alone, fighting a war no one else could see. And I know," he paused, jaw working, "I know what it feels like to be trapped by someone else's cruelty, to have your body turned into a weapon against you. You were abused. For 10 years. Until I was strong enough to kill him." Gi-hun's smile was dark, edged with old pain. "But I didn't. My biological father, the chairman, stopped me. Not out of morality, but greed. Jonathan was too valuable to the syndicate's political interests. My father forbade me from touching him. But my father died 6 months ago. The leash is off, so I waited, planned. When I was 23, I destroyed Jonathan financially. I crippled his private equity firm. But he pivoted. He used Vane's dirty money to buy his way into politics, rebuilding his power base where I couldn't touch him legally. Mercy? Revenge. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. Death is quick. Ruin is forever. Another wave hit. Kelsey's vision blacked out completely. She felt Gi-hun's hands on her, steadying her, but she couldn't see. Panic clawed up her throat. Can't see, she gasped. Gi-hun, can't. Temporary symptom. Your doctor said it would happen. His voice was close, his breath warm against her temple. Your optic nerves are inflamed from the withdrawal. It'll pass, I promise. How long? A day, maybe less. A day, blind and helpless while Vane hunted them. Perfect. Kelsey laughed, the sound bitter and broken. Should have. Let me die. On the bridge. No. Gi-hun's hands tightened on hers. Never say that again. I'm liability now. You're my partner now. He shifted, and she felt the bed dip as he lay down beside her. Not touching. Just close enough that she could feel his presence. Solid. Real. Warm. Rest. I'll keep watch. Can't sleep. Then I'll talk. Tell you stories until you do. And he did. His voice became her world in the darkness. He told her about growing up in Seoul, about learning to fight in back alleys and boardrooms, about his father teaching him that power wasn't just violence but strategy, about the first time he killed a man, a rival who'd targeted his family, about the nightmares that followed. Kelsey listened, her body gradually relaxing despite the pain. There was something hypnotic about his voice, the way he offered pieces of himself without asking for anything in return. Why did you choose me? She asked when he paused. In Vane's penthouse. You could have taken anything. Why me? Silence stretched. Then, because I saw myself in you. The person I was before I learned I could fight back. The person trapped and terrified and too proud to show it. His hand found hers again in the dark, and because when you spilled that wine, your hand was shaking from withdrawal, not fear, I knew then that you were dangerous, that under the uniform was someone who'd burn the world if given the chance. And you wanted that. I wanted to give you that chance. His voice dropped lower, intimate in the darkness. I wanted to see what Subject Zero would do if someone set her free. Kelsey's chest constricted. No one had ever spoken about her like that. Like she was a person instead of a weapon. Like her freedom mattered more than her utility. I'm going to disappoint you, she whispered. Impossible. Another convulsion took her, blessedly shorter this time. Gi-hun held her through it, one arm anchored across her waist, his other hand stroking her braids with a gentleness that unmade her. Sleep, little bird, he murmured against her temple. I'll watch over you, always. It was the always that broke her. The certainty in his voice, the promise she didn't dare believe. But exhaustion was stronger than doubt. Kelsey sank into unconsciousness, with his hand in hers, his warmth solid against her back, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't dream of death. Kelsey woke to the sensation of sight returning in fragments. First light, then shapes. Finally, details. The concrete ceiling above her, the medical equipment humming in the corner. Gi-hun, slouched in a chair beside her bed, eyes closed but posture rigid. He hadn't really slept, just rested while maintaining guard. She studied him in the harsh artificial light of the bunker. His face was all sharp angles softened by exhaustion, dark shadows beneath his eyes, stubble along his jaw that made him look younger, more vulnerable. There was a grace to him even in stillness, the coiled readiness of a predator that never truly relaxed. You're staring, he said without opening his eyes. Kelsey's pulse jumped. How did you? Your breathing changed. Now his eyes opened, dark and infinitely alert. You can see. Yes. Good. He stood, stretching with feline grace, then crossed to check the IV drip that fed clear liquid into her arm. The worst is over. My chemist stabilized a preliminary antidote. It's keeping you functional until we can synthesize the complete cure. Kelsey looked at the IV, then back at him. How long was I out? 18 hours, which meant she'd lost an entire day to the withdrawal. Lost time she couldn't afford. Vane is tearing the city apart looking for you. Gi-hun sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could count the flecks of amber in his irises. My people intercepted his communications. He knows you're the one who's been sabotaging his operations for the past year. He wants you back. Not to kill, to make an example of. Kelsey's stomach turned cold. She knew what Vane did to people who betrayed him. Had seen the bodies. Then we need to move. Get out of the city before. Before what? Gi-hun's expression was unreadable. Before you explain why you've been communicating with his head of security, the world tilted. What? We cracked your burner phone. He produced the device from his pocket, holding it up like evidence. Found text messages, coordinates, shipment times, all sent to Micah Reeves, Vane's right hand. Kelsey's mind raced. The burner. She'd been so careful, had only used it for… I can explain, she started. Can you? Gi-hun's voice was soft. Too soft. Dangerous. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been feeding Vane intelligence, playing both sides, using me to get access to resources you needed. That's not. Then what is it? He stood, pacing to the window. His shoulders were rigid, every line of his body broadcasting betrayal. I brought you into my home, protected you, held you while you shook yourself apart. And the whole time, you were working for him? The hurt in his voice was a knife between her ribs. Kelsey struggled to sit up, the IV pulling at her arm. Gi-hun, listen to me. Why should I? He turned, and the look on his face was the one she'd seen in intelligence photos. The tiger of soul, the man who'd destroyed rivals without mercy. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't put you back on the street. Or better yet, deliver you to Vane myself. Collect whatever bounty he's offering. Because you're smarter than that. Kelsey's voice came out stronger than she felt. You said it yourself. I'm subject zero. If I wanted to betray you, you'd be dead already. Maybe you're waiting for the right moment. Or maybe you should read the actual messages before you accuse me of treason. Gi-hun's jaw tightened. He looked at the phone, then back at her. What am I missing? Read them. Out loud. Every word. He unlocked the phone with a swipe, accessing the message thread. His eyes scanned the screen, and she watched as confusion replaced anger. These aren't intel. These are coordinates for abandoned warehouses. Warehouses Vane uses as staging points. I hacked their building management system 6 months ago as my own insurance policy. But I used those coordinates this week to send threats, drawing his attention away from your shipments. Gi-hun's head snapped up. You what? The messages weren't intelligence I was giving to Micah. They were threats. Locations I could blow up remotely if Vane pushed too hard. If he came for me before I was ready to eliminate him. Kelsey met his gaze steadily. I wasn't protecting Vane, Gi-hun. I was protecting you. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Gi-hun scrolled through more messages, his expression shifting as he read between the lines. The coordinates here, he said slowly. These would have drawn Vane's attention away from my shipping routes. Yes. And these dates. They correspond to shipments you could have sabotaged but didn't, because sabotaging them would have brought you into conflict with Vane's partners. I didn't want you caught in crossfire meant for me. Gi-hun set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture uncharacteristically agitated. You were protecting me from the shadows. I couldn't let you get hurt because of me. Kelsey's voice was quiet. You were the first person in 3 years who looked at me like I was human, who saw past the uniform. I wasn't going to repay that by bringing a war to your door. But you brought it anyway. Those men on the bridge were sent by Jonathan, not Vane. Your stepfather. Kelsey pushed herself fully upright, ignoring the way her muscles protested. He's connected to this, to the eclipses, to the framing, to Vane. I don't know how yet, but I do. Gi-hun's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone of someone delivering facts they wished weren't true. Jonathan is Vane's silent partner. Has been for 15 years. My intelligence confirmed it while you were unconscious. The revelation hit like a physical blow. The man who abused you is in business with the man who imprisoned me. Poetic, isn't it? Gi-hun's laugh was dark and bitter. The monsters in our lives are connected. Have been all along. Kelsey processed this, fitting pieces together. The attack on my team 5 years ago. The frame job. Jonathan ordered it because we stumbled onto evidence of his partnership with Vane. We weren't the target. We were witnesses he needed to eliminate. And he failed. With you. Gi-hun crossed back to the bed, sitting close enough that their knees touched. So he kept you alive but neutralized, turned over to his partner, drugged into compliance, hidden in plain sight as a maid. A warning to anyone else who might discover their operation, and a backup asset if they ever needed a trained killer who couldn't refuse orders. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Kelsey had spent 3 years thinking her survival was luck. It had been strategy. She was a weapon Vane kept loaded but never fired, waiting for the moment he needed her particular skills. We need to kill them both, she said flatly. Gi-hun's eyebrows rose. Direct. Effective. Kelsey met his gaze. You want revenge for your childhood. I want justice for my team. We can give each other what we need, by going to war with a senator and an arms dealer. By being smarter than them. Kelsey leaned forward, energy returning despite her body's protests. Vane thinks I'm helpless without his drugs. Jonathan thinks I'm dead or broken. They're both wrong, and they have no idea we're working together. Working together. Gi-hun's hand found hers, his thumb tracing the callus on her trigger finger. Is that what we're doing? The question held layers she wasn't ready to examine. What else would you call it? A partnership. His voice dropped lower, intimate. An alliance. 2 ghosts haunting the same house, learning each other's shadows. Kelsey's breath caught. This close, she could see the exhaustion lining his face, could smell cedar and coffee and something uniquely him, could feel the heat radiating from his body, warming spaces in her that had been cold for years. I thought you were betraying me, he said quietly. For about 30 seconds I thought you'd played me. That everything, the vulnerability, the withdrawal, the trust, was a long game. And I was going to let you live anyway. His free hand came up, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. I was going to drive you to the airport, give you money, and watch you disappear. Because even if you'd betrayed me, you deserved freedom more than I deserved revenge. The admission broke something loose in Kelsey's chest. She'd spent 3 years convinced she was unknowable, that no one would choose her if given the option, that her value was only in her skills, never in herself. I didn't betray you, she whispered. I know. I won't betray you. I know that too. His forehead rested against hers, the gesture achingly intimate. You're loyal to your bones, little bird. It's one of the things that makes you dangerous. What are the others? You don't know when to quit. You fight when you should run. You'd burn yourself to ash if it meant keeping your people safe. His breath ghosted across her lips. And your people now? That includes me. It wasn't a question. But Kelsey answered anyway. Yes. Good. Gi-hun pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. Because we're about to do something incredibly stupid and probably suicidal, and I need to know you're with me completely. What kind of stupid? The kind where we fake my death, get you captured by Vane, and use you as a Trojan horse to destroy his operation from the inside. Kelsey stared at him. Then, despite everything, the pain, the exhaustion, the impossible odds, she laughed. Real and genuine. That's your plan? It's a terrible plan. It's a suicide plan. Yes, Gi-hun smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. But it's the kind of plan Subject Zero would love. High risk, maximum chaos, impossible odds. He wasn't wrong. The sniper in her was already calculating angles, identifying variables, mapping the operation. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was exactly the kind of mission she used to live for. One condition, Kelsey said. Name it. If this goes wrong, if I'm compromised beyond extraction, you leave me behind. You don't risk yourself trying to save me. Gi-hun's expression hardened. No, Gi-hun. No. His hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. We do this together, or not at all. You don't get to martyr yourself. Not on my watch. We're partners now. Equals. Which means if you fall, I'm falling with you. That's strategically unsound. I don't care. His thumbs traced her cheekbones with a gentleness that contrasted with the steel in his voice. I didn't pull you out of Vane's house to watch you sacrifice yourself. You want revenge? We'll get it. Together. But you don't get to die in the process. That's not negotiable. Kelsey should argue. Should point out the tactical flaws in emotional attachments. Should remind him that operatives who couldn't leave partners behind got everyone killed. Instead, she found herself nodding, agreeing to a partnership that had transformed somewhere between the penthouse and the safe house into something more dangerous than any mission, something that felt terrifyingly like trust. Together, she said. Together. Gi-hun sealed the promise with a kiss to her forehead, chaste and reverent and heavy with meaning. Now rest. We have 3 days to prepare. And when we move fast. 3 days until what? Until the charity gala at the Opera House, where every monster in the city gathers to pretend they're civilized. His smile was predatory, including Vane and Jonathan. And that's where the tiger and the ghost will show them exactly what happens when you cage the wrong predators. The war room hummed with electronic life. Banks of monitors displayed surveillance feeds, encrypted communications, and real-time data streams from every corner of Vane's operation. Kelsey sat at the central console, her fingers flying across keyboards with the muscle memory of someone who'd spent years navigating digital battlefields. Her vision had fully stabilized. The tremors had reduced to occasional twitches. The antidote Gi-hun's chemists had synthesized was working, slowly purging Vane's poison from her system. She felt almost human again, almost herself. There, she said, highlighting a server cluster on the main display. That's the government database the Eclipses used for operational intelligence. If Jonathan's involved, his fingerprints will be in the access logs. Gi-hun stood behind her, his hand resting lightly on the back of her chair. He'd barely left her side in the 3 days since her vision returned. Not hovering, just present, a solid warmth at her back that made her feel less like she was fighting alone. Can you break in? He asked. Already have. Kelsey pulled up a cascade of files, filtering by date. I installed a backdoor 6 years ago, during my first month with the Eclipses. Insurance policy in case the agency turned on me. Paranoid. Prepared. She typed rapidly, narrowing the search. Here. Access logs from 5 years ago. The week my team was ambushed, the screen populated with names and clearance levels. Kelsey's chest tightened as she recognized her fallen teammates. Rodriguez, Kim, Okonkwo, Anderson, all dead on a tarmac in Yemen because they'd stumbled onto evidence of. The login came from a secure terminal in Jonathan's private office. He used a stolen clearance code, but the IP address traces back to him. Downloaded your operational parameters, your route, your timing, everything. He sold us to Vane's people. Kelsey's hands clenched into fists. Fed them our location. Set us up to be slaughtered. Not all of you. Gi-hun leaned closer, his breath warm against her temple. You survived. Why? Kelsey called up the mission after action report. The official story said she'd been severely wounded, left for dead, evacuated to a military hospital. But she remembered the truth. Remembered waking up in a facility that smelled wrong. Remembered Vane's face above her, smiling like the devil offering a deal. He kept me alive, she said slowly. Convinced the Eclipses I was too damaged to be operationally viable. I spent 2 years in a medically induced coma, while they reconstructed my face and erased my identity. Then 3 years as his servant. Offered to rehabilitate me through a private program. She pulled up her medical files, seeing the fabricated reports. These injuries, I never had them. Vane created a paper trail, made it look like I was broken beyond repair. So Jonathan's agency wouldn't look for you. They'd think you were being handled through proper channels, while Vane drugged me into compliance and turned me into his personal asset. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Jonathan wanted me dead. Vane wanted me controlled. They compromised. I disappeared into Vane's organization, erased from official records, useful as a backup weapon if needed. Gi-hun was silent for a long moment. Then he reached past her, pulling up a different file. His hands were steady, but she felt the tension radiating from his body. "There's more," he said. The file that opened made Kelsey's blood run cold. It was a partnership agreement, dated 15 years ago. One signature read, Dominic Vane. The other, Arthur Jonathan. "They've been working together since you were a child," Kelsey said. "Since I was 10. Gi-hun's voice was hollow. "The year my father married Jonathan's sister. The year Jonathan moved into our home. The year the abuse started." He pulled up another document. A financial ledger showing money flowing between Jonathan's political campaigns and Vane's shell corporations. Millions of dollars laundered through charitable foundations and real estate investments. Jonathan provided political protection. Gi-hun continued, his voice mechanical. "Made sure Vane's shipments cleared customs. Made sure investigations disappeared. Made sure anyone who got too close ended up dead or discredited. Like my team. Like your team." Gi-hun's hand found hers, squeezing hard enough to bruise. And in exchange, Vane funded Jonathan's political rise, provided blackmail material on Jonathan's opponents, removed obstacles with extreme prejudice. Kelsey turned in her chair to face him. His expression was carved from stone, but his eyes blazed with a fury so intense it made her breath catch. "The man who beat me," Gi-hun said quietly, "who locked me in freezers and told me I was worthless, who made my childhood a nightmare. That man is responsible for your team's deaths, for your torture, for everything Vane did to you. He's the connection, the thread linking all of it. He's the foundation." Gi-hun's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Destroy the foundation, and everything built on it collapses." Kelsey studied him, seeing past the fury to the calculation beneath. "You've been planning this for a while. Since before you bought me from Vane. I've been planning Jonathan's destruction since I was strong enough to hold a knife." Gi-hun crouched before her, bringing them eye to eye. "But I was missing a piece. Something that would give me leverage over both Jonathan and Vane simultaneously. Something that would let me destroy them completely instead of just wounding them. And then I appeared." "And then you appeared." His hand came up, tucking a loose braid behind her ear. "Subject 0, the weapon they thought they'd neutralized, the witness they thought they'd silenced, the ghost who knows where all their bodies are buried." Understanding dawned. "You didn't choose me randomly in that penthouse. No, you knew who I was, what I was. You'd been looking for me. For 2 years. Gi-hun's admission was soft but steady. "Ever since I discovered Jonathan and Vane were partners, I knew they'd killed your team to protect their operation. I knew one member had survived, but disappeared. I spent 2 years tracking Subject 0 through rumors and ghost stories, and then I got invited to negotiate with Vane, and there you were, hiding in plain sight, dying slowly, the perfect weapon waiting to be claimed. Kelsey should feel used, should feel like just another piece on his chessboard. Instead, she felt something closer to relief, because Gi-hun had never lied about his motives, had never pretended this was anything other than what it was. 2 people with complementary vengeance using each other to achieve what neither could alone. "So this has always been about revenge," she said. "Yes, you saved my life to use me against Jonathan and Vane. Yes. And everything else. The care, the gentleness, holding me through withdrawal. That was just strategy? Earning my loyalty?" Gi-hun's expression shifted, revealing something raw beneath the calculation. "No, that was..." He paused, jaw working. "That started as strategy. But it stopped being strategy somewhere around the second time you looked at me like I was human instead of just another threat. It stopped being strategy when you drugged my whiskey and I realized you were trying to survive, not seduce. It stopped being strategy when you took that impossible shot on the bridge and I understood I was looking at someone as broken and dangerous as me. So what is it now? I don't know. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. But it's not strategy. It's not manipulation. It's something I don't have a name for yet. Something that makes me want to burn the world down to keep you safe. Kelsey's heart kicked against her ribs. This was dangerous. More dangerous than any mission, because she was starting to believe him. Starting to want the promise implicit in his touch. We can't afford this, she said, even as she leaned into his palm. Can't afford to be compromised by. By caring? Gi-hun's smile was sharp. Little bird, I passed compromised 3 days ago when I carried you out of Vane's penthouse. We're beyond strategic now, beyond tactical. We're in territory neither of us has mapped. That's going to get us killed. Probably. He stood, pulling her up with him. But if we're going to die, let's die taking them with us. Jonathan, Vane, everyone who ever hurt us. Everyone who thought we'd stay broken. Let's show them what happens when ghosts come back to haunt them. Kelsey looked at the evidence displayed across the monitors. Years of corruption, decades of violence. 2 men who'd built empires on the bones of people like her. The gala is in 3 days, she said. 72 hours, Gi-hun corrected. Enough time to learn the layout, plant the weapon, and make sure you don't miss. And you want me to shoot you in front of everyone? In front of God and the San Francisco elite. Gi-hun's grin was feral. I'll be wearing Kevlar, but you'll need to hit the plate perfectly. If you miss, I won't miss. Even with residual withdrawal? Even with the pressure? Kelsey met his gaze steadily. I'm subject 0. I never miss. No. His hand found hers again, their fingers intertwining with a rightness that felt inevitable. You don't, which is why this is going to work. We fake my death. You get captured. Vane takes you back to his bunker, where he keeps the full antidote formula. And while he's gloating, I'll be coming for him from below. And Jonathan? Jonathan will be at the gala. Will see me die. Will think he's won. And that's when my people will move on him. Simultaneously. Both targets, both locations, both monsters destroyed in one night. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of operation that would either become legendary or get them killed. Kelsey pulled up a schematic of the opera house, already planning angles and exits. I'll need a clean line of sight. No obstructions. You'll be in the rafters. I've already secured access. And after I shoot you, when Vane's people close in, you surrender, scream, make it look real. They'll take you straight to him. He'll want to punish you personally for killing me. That's when you'll have access to everything. His servers, his antidote, his throat. You're asking me to put myself back in his hands. I'm asking you to trust me. Gi-hun turned her to face him fully, his hands on her shoulders. To trust that I'll come for you, that you won't be alone in that bunker, that this time, when the monster has you, you'll have backup. And if something goes wrong, then we improvise, together. That's what partners do. Partners. The word settled over Kelsey like a promise. She'd worked alone for so long, had learned to trust only herself. But looking at Gi-hun, seeing the determination in his eyes, feeling the steady strength in his hands, she found herself believing maybe she didn't have to be alone anymore. Maybe Subject Zero could have a partner after all. Together, she said, sealing the pact. Together. Gi-hun pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. Now let's go kill some monsters. The opera house glittered like a jewel box designed by someone who'd never known subtlety. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across silk-draped walls. The city's elite circulated in their designer armor. Armani and Valentino and names Kelsey didn't care to remember. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed. Underneath the civility, predators assessed each other with the timeless calculus of power. Kelsey watched from the rafters, invisible in tactical black. The sniper rifle was a familiar weight in her hands. Different weapon than the Shaytak, but the principle was the same. It was where Gi-hun had promised it would be, planted inside the ventilation shaft by his team 2 days ago. Breathe, aim, kill, except tonight. Killing wasn't the objective. Tonight was theater. Through her scope, she found Gi-hun entering the main hall. He wore a tuxedo that transformed him from dangerous to devastating. Every woman in the room tracked his movement. Every man measured themselves against him and found themselves wanting. The tiger of soul, making an entrance. And there, halfway across the room, Dominic Vane, looking smug in his tailored suit, champagne in hand, laughing with a senator Kelsey didn't recognize. He thought he'd won. Thought she was dead or broken somewhere. No longer his problem. Jonathan stood near the stage, distinguished and silver-haired, playing the role of respected politician with practiced ease. Kelsey's finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet, not him. The plan required precision. Ghost to tiger, she murmured into her calm. I have visual. You're clear to engage. Copy. Gi-hun's voice was steady in her ear. Remember, center mass, through the Kevlar. Don't hesitate. I never hesitate. I know. That's what I love about you. The word landed like a bullet she hadn't seen coming. Love. He'd said it casually, easily, like it was a fact rather than a revelation. Kelsey's breath caught. Focus, little bird. Now his voice carried amusement. You can be shocked later. Right now, we have a show to perform. Gi-hun moved through the crowd like a shark through shallow water. Conversations parted around him. He accepted champagne from a passing waiter, his movements graceful and unhurried, just another predator at a gathering of predators. Then his path intersected with Vane's. The collision was deliberate. Champagne splashed across Vane's jacket. Vane turned, irritation flashing across his face before recognition hit. His expression went carefully neutral. Gi-hun. Vane's voice carried across the suddenly quiet space. How? Unexpected. Dominic. Gi-hun smiled, all teeth and no warmth. We need to talk. About property you recently misplaced. I have no idea what you're... The Maid. Gi-hun's voice dropped, but the acoustics carried it anyway. People were watching now, listening. The one you sold me for nothing. The one who turned out to be significantly more valuable than you realized. Vane's face went white, then red. That's not. You can't. Can't what? Expose that you've been keeping a Black Ops sniper drugged and imprisoned for 3 years? That you sold her to me without mentioning she was Subject Zero? That you've been using her to eliminate your rivals while keeping her too chemical dependent to escape? The crowd murmured. Phones came out. This was better than theater. This was blood in the water. You have no proof, Vane hissed. Don't I? Gi-hun produced a flash drive, holding it up like evidence. Medical records, drug formulations. A list of confirmed kills she performed under your orders while chemically enslaved. Should I project it on the screen behind you? Give everyone a clear picture of what you are? Kelsey's scope tracked between them. Security was moving in. Vane's people, converging from multiple angles. This was it, the moment that would commit them both to the path or get them killed. You're a dead man, Vane said quietly. Probably. Gi-hun's smile widened. But not before I ruin you. Vane's security is 20 feet from your position, Kelsey murmured into the comm. 15. You need to move now. Not yet. Need the visual. Need everyone to see. 10 feet. 5. Gi-hun turned toward the stage, toward Jonathan, catching the senator's eye across the room. Jonathan's expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. He recognized the threat, understood what was about to happen. Senator Jonathan, Gi-hun called out, his voice carrying. Tell them about your partnership with Vane, about the Black Ops team you had killed, about Subject Zero. Jonathan went pale. The crowd pressed closer, sharks sensing scandal. Now, little bird, Gi-hun said softly. Do it now, Kelsey breathed out. The world narrowed to the scope's crosshairs. The Kevlar plate under Gi-hun's shirt was exactly where he'd said it would be, over his heart. Designed to stop a bullet without causing actual damage. But the shot had to be perfect. Too high, she hit his throat. Too low, she hit his stomach. Either way, he'd die. Her hands were steady. The tremors had stopped completely. Subject Zero was back. She aimed for the center of the Kevlar plate, the spot that would create maximum visual impact. Blood pack exploding, Gi-hun falling dramatically, while causing minimum actual damage. The room seemed to hold its breath. Kelsey pulled the trigger. The sound was catastrophic in the enclosed space. Gi-hun's chest exploded in crimson as the blood pack ruptured. He staggered, his hand going to the wound, his eyes wide with shock that was half real, half performance. He fell, crashing into a table, champagne glasses shattering around him. Screaming, panic, people running for exits. Kelsey was already moving, breaking down the rifle with practiced efficiency. She had 15 seconds before security found her position, 10 seconds to plant the evidence, 5 seconds to. A hand closed around her ankle. She looked down into the face of one of Vane's men, his expression savage with triumph. More men appeared, professionals who'd anticipated her location, waited for the shot, trapped her in the rafters. "Don't move," the lead guard ordered, his gun pressed to her spine. "You're coming with us." Kelsey let the rifle clatter to the catwalk, raised her hands, played the captured sniper, shocked and defeated. Inside, Subject Zero was calculating, observing, preparing for what came next. They slapped heavy steel cuffs on her wrists, yanked her to her feet, and dragged her down service stairs away from the chaos. A van waited in the alley, engine running. She let them throw her inside, let them slam the doors shut, sealing her in darkness with 4 armed men. The plan was working. She was being delivered exactly where she needed to be, to Vane's bunker, to the antidote, to the endgame. Through the van's small window, she caught a glimpse of the opera house. Emergency vehicles arriving. Someone, Jonathan probably, trying to manage the chaos. Gi-hun's body being loaded into an ambulance, covered with a sheet. She'd just shot the only person who'd seen her as human in 3 years. The only person who'd promised to come for her. And now she was on her own, heading into the monster's lair, betting everything on a promise made by a man who might already be dead despite the Kevlar. The van pulled into traffic. Kelsey closed her eyes and breathed, forcing her heart rate down, her mind clear. If Gi-hun was dead, she'd kill Vane and Jonathan and burn both their operations to ash before they put her down. If he was alive, they'd do it together. Either way, by dawn, the monsters would be bleeding. The bunker smelled of ozone and concrete and old fear. Vane had her chained to a chair in the center of his operating room, the same room where he'd dosed her for 3 years, where he'd turned her body into a prison. The irony wasn't lost on her. "You killed him," Vane said, circling her like a shark. "The great Choi Gi-hun, dead because of you, because of your stupid attempt at freedom." Kelsey kept her expression blank. The chains were solid but not unbreakable. She'd already tested them, cataloged their weaknesses. She just needed time, silent treatment. Vane laughed, the sound echoing off concrete walls. "That's fine. You'll talk eventually. You always do when the withdrawal starts again." He held up a vial of clear liquid, her old poison, the neurosuppressant that had kept her compliant. "Recognize this? I'm going to put you right back where you were, dependent, desperate, useful. And this time, I'll make sure you never get loose again." The needle glinted in the harsh fluorescent light as he approached. Kelsey's pulse kicked, but she forced herself still. Not yet. Wait for the moment. Vane was 3 feet away, 2 feet, the needle poised above her arm. The lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the bunker. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. Vane spun, searching the shadows, his gun appearing in his hand with practiced speed. "What the fuck?" A red laser dot appeared on his chest. "Hello, Dominic." Gi-hun's voice echoed through the bunker, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Miss me?" Vane's face went white. "You're dead. I saw you die. I saw her shoot you. You saw theater. You saw what I wanted you to see. You saw the greatest hits of Subject Zero's skill set." The voice was closer now, moving through the shadows. "What you didn't see was the Kevlar, the blood pack, the ambulance full of my people instead of EMTs, the resurrection of a very angry tiger." Light exploded from multiple directions. Flashbangs that turned the world white and loud and disorienting. Kelsey slammed her eyes shut, had already turned away from the source. When her vision cleared, Gi-hun stood in the doorway, dressed in tactical gear, very much alive and radiating lethal intent. "No," Vane gasped. "No, this isn't. Real? Oh, it's very real." Gi-hun raised his weapon. A sleek black pistol that looked like an extension of his hand. "And now you're going to pay for every moment you kept her chained, every pill you forced down her throat, every nightmare you gave her." Vane scrambled backward, his gun swinging between Gi-hun and Kelsey. "You can't kill me. You need the full antidote formula. Only I know where it's stored." "Wrong." Kelsey's voice was steady, cold, the voice of Subject Zero. "I physically inserted a drive into your air-gapped server when your guards dragged me in here. It's uploading to 12 different secure locations right now. You're obsolete, Dominic." Vane's face collapsed into fury. "You fucking bitch." He swung his gun toward her. Kelsey had already moved, dislocating her thumb with a sickening pop, compressing her hand just enough to slip the steel cuffs. The thumb would reset later. Right now, she needed to be free. She caught Vane's wrist as he fired, redirecting the shot into the ceiling. Concrete dust rained down. Kelsey twisted, using his momentum against him, dropping him to the floor. The gun clattered away. Gi-hun could have ended it, could have put 3 rounds in Vane's skull. Instead, he watched, weapon lowered, giving Kelsey the moment she'd earned. "You made me a ghost," Kelsey said, kneeling on Vane's chest, her hands around his throat. "You took 3 years of my life, poisoned me, used me, thought I'd stay broken forever." Vane clawed at her hands, gasping. "Please." "Did my team plead?" Kelsey tightened her grip. "Did they beg Jonathan to spare them when his people mowed them down on that tarmac? Did they get mercy?" I'll give you anything. I don't want anything from you anymore." Kelsey leaned close, letting him see his death in her eyes. "I just want you gone." She snapped his neck with a single efficient twist. The sound was sharp, final. Vane's body went limp. Kelsey stood, her hands steady, her breathing controlled. She'd imagined this moment for 3 years, had pictured herself feeling triumph, satisfaction, closure. Instead, she just felt tired, empty, like she'd cauterized a wound, but the scar would remain forever. "Kelsey." Gi-hun's voice was soft. He crossed to her, his hands finding her shoulders. "Are you—" "I'm fine." She met his eyes, searching for judgment, finding only understanding. "Is Jonathan dead?" "My people moved on him simultaneously with this operation. He resisted arrest, made it easy." Gi-hun's smile was dark. "The monsters are gone, both of them, erased, just like that. Just like that." His hand slid down her arms, checking her for injuries. "Though I have to say, the thumb dislocation was dramatic." "Did you have to?" "Yes." Kelsey popped her thumb back into joint with a hiss. "And I'll do it again if you doubt me." "Never." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with a fierceness that stole her breath. "I'd never doubt you. You're the most terrifying person I've ever met, and you just held a woman while she snapped someone's neck." "I held my partner while she got justice." Gi-hun's voice was muffled against her hair. "There's a difference." Kelsey sagged against him, letting herself be held. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her shaky and hollow. "We did it. We actually did it. We did." He pulled back enough to see her face. "Though I have to admit, watching you shoot me was more terrifying than any of the actual life-threatening parts. I told you I wouldn't miss. You didn't. It still hurt like hell. The ceramic plate stopped the bullet, but the impact feels like it shattered my sternum. Breathing is optional right now." He touched his chest with a wince. "Worth it, though. The look on Vane's face when I walked in here was priceless." Despite everything, Kelsey laughed. It came out shaky, almost hysterical, but genuine. "We're insane. You know that, right? This whole plan was insane. Completely." Gi-hun cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. But it worked. And now you're free. Really free. No more poison. No more chains. No more monsters in the dark. What happens now? Now? His smile was gentle, transformative. Now we burn this place to the ground and go home. Home. The word settled over Kelsey like a promise. She had a home now. Had a partner. Had a future that wasn't dictated by survival and revenge. Together? She asked. Always together. Gi-hun kissed her forehead, her temple, the corner of her mouth. Not passionate, reverent, like she was something precious he'd fought to protect. My dangerous, beautiful ghost. Let's go home. They set the charges together, methodically wiring Vane's bunker to erase every trace of his operation. The antidote formula was safe, backed up in multiple locations. The evidence of Jonathan and Vane's partnership was already being delivered to every major news outlet. By morning, their empires would be exposed, their legacies destroyed. Kelsey stood beside Gi-hun as they watched the bunker burn from a safe distance. Fire painted the night sky orange and gold. Smoke rose in thick columns, carrying the last remnants of her imprisonment into the atmosphere. I should feel something more, she said. Triumph, closure, something. You will, eventually. Gi-hun took her hand, their fingers intertwining. But right now you're just surviving. That's enough. Is it? It's more than enough. It's everything. He turned to her, his expression serious. I meant what I said earlier. In the opera house. Before you shot me. Kelsey's heart kicked. About being a dead man? About loving you. The words were simple, direct. No poetry. No grand gestures. Just truth. I love you. Kelsey Robertson. Subject 0. The ghost. All the names you wear, and all the ones you've shed. I love the woman who shot me to save me, who survived 3 years in hell and came out still fighting, who's loyal to her bones and dangerous to her core. You barely know me. I know enough. And what I don't know yet, I'll spend however long you'll let me learning. If you want that. If you want me. Did she? Kelsey searched inside herself for the answer. Found it waiting, obvious and terrifying. I don't know how to be in a relationship, she admitted. I don't know how to be anything other than a weapon. Then we'll figure it out together. 2 weapons learning to be people. 2 ghosts becoming real. Gi-hun stepped closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. But only if you want this. I won't trap you, Kelsey. You're free now. Completely free. You can walk away. I'll help you disappear. Set you up anywhere in the world. Give you the life you should have had. And if I don't want to disappear, then stay. Be my partner. My equal. Help me run the organization my father built. Turn it into something better than revenge and violence. Or don't. Forge your own path. And I'll support you anyway. Whatever you choose. I'm not letting you go unless you tell me to. Kelsey looked at the fire, looked at the night sky, looked at the man offering her freedom and partnership, and something that felt dangerously like home. I'm done running, she said. Relief flooded Gi-hun's expression. Yeah? Kelsey rose on her toes, closing the distance between them. I want to stay. I want to figure this out. I want to see what we become when we're not fighting for survival. He kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. The fire blazed behind them, erasing the past. The future stretched ahead, unwritten and theirs to shape. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Gi-hun smiled against her lips. Welcome home, little bird, he whispered. And for the first time in 6 years, Kelsey Robertson believed she'd found one. 3 months later, the penthouse looked different in daylight, warmer, more lived in. Books scattered across the coffee table, hers mixed with his. Coffee cups abandoned mid-morning. Evidence of 2 lives intertwining, learning the rhythm of cohabitation. Kelsey stood on the balcony, watching fog roll in off the Pacific. Her body was her own again. The antidote had purged the last traces of Vane's poison. The tremors were gone. Her vision was sharp. Subject 0 was fully operational. But Subject Zero wasn't who she was anymore. Or maybe she was, but she was also just Kelsey now. Partner, survivor, woman learning how to exist without a constant threat assessment running in her head. "You're thinking too loud," Gi-hun's voice came from behind her. "I can hear your brain working from the kitchen." She turned to find him holding 2 cups of coffee, his hair still damp from the shower. 3 months of living together had taught her his routines. Morning run, shower, coffee, then work. "Just processing," she said, accepting a cup. "It's been 3 months. 97 days since the opera house. 97 days since we burned it all down." Gi-hun leaned against the balcony railing beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Having regrets? No. Just adjusting. It was true. The physical wounds had healed quickly. The psychological ones were taking longer. She still woke, sometimes expecting to find herself back in Vane's penthouse, chained and desperate. Still reached for weapons that weren't there. Still cataloged exits in every room she entered. But she was learning to sleep through the night without nightmares. Learning to accept touch without flinching. Learning that not every kindness hid cruelty beneath. "Jonathan's empire is officially dissolved," Gi-hun said, scrolling through his phone. "The feds seized everything. His political allies are scrambling to distance themselves. His name is synonymous with corruption now." "Good." Kelsey sipped her coffee, letting the warmth settle into her bones. "And Vane's organization?" "Scattered to the winds. His lieutenants are either dead or arrested. His shipments are intercepted. His network is in pieces." Gi-hun set his phone aside, giving her his full attention. "The monsters are gone, Kelsey. Really gone. They can't hurt you anymore." She wanted to believe him. Was learning to believe him. But hypervigilance was a hard habit to break. "I have something for you," Gi-hun said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. Something flatter. Kelsey set down her coffee and accepted it with hands that only trembled slightly. Inside was a passport. Her photo. A new name, Kelsey Choi. "It's not a proposal," Gi-hun said quickly. "Not yet. I know you're not ready for that. But it's options. A legitimate identity. Clean background. No flags. No warrants. You can travel. Live normally. Be whoever you want to be." Kelsey stared at the passport. Kelsey Choi. The name felt foreign and intimate simultaneously. "You gave me your name. I gave you freedom. The name is just paperwork." Gi-hun's hand found hers. "But if you want to use it, if you want to officially be my partner in all the legal ways that matter, it's there. No pressure, no expectations, just options. And if I want to use my own name, then I'll have a different passport made. Whatever you want, Kelsey. That's the point. You get to choose now. Choice. The luxury she'd been denied for so long. The freedom to decide her own path. "I'm not a good person," she said quietly. "I've killed people. A lot of people. I'll probably kill more if necessary." "I know. I've killed more." Gi-hun turned her to face him fully. "We're not good people, little bird. We're survivors who've done what we had to do. But we can choose to be better than what we were. Choose to build something that matters instead of just tearing things down." "Like what?" "Like taking the empire I just inherited and turning it into something actually useful. My father built it on blood and alliances with men like Jonathan. We're going to build it on something else. Protection instead of exploitation. Justice instead of revenge." His expression was serious, hopeful. "I need a partner for that. Someone as ruthless as me, but with a moral compass that actually points somewhere. Someone who understands that sometimes violence is necessary but shouldn't be the first choice. Someone who can shoot like a god but chooses not to unless there's no other option." "You're describing a fantasy." "I'm describing you." Gi-hun cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You survived 3 years under Vane without becoming him. You kept your humanity while being turned into a weapon. You're exactly who I need. But more than that, you're exactly who I want. Even knowing I'm broken, you're not broken. You're sharp. There's a difference." He kissed her forehead, her nose, her mouth, soft touches that she was still learning to accept without bracing for pain. "And even if you were broken, I'd love you anyway." Because broken things can be beautiful, can be fierce, can be exactly what the world needs. Kelsey's throat tightened. I don't know how to do this. How to be in a relationship. How to trust someone not to hurt me. Good thing I'm patient. And stubborn. And not going anywhere. Gi-hun pulled her close, his arms solid and warm around her. We'll figure it out together. One day at a time. One choice at a time. No pressure. No expectations. Just us. Learning how to exist without constantly preparing for war. I still prepare for war. So do I. But maybe we can prepare together. And maybe between the preparations, we can have some peace. Peace. The word felt foreign, impossible. But standing here, wrapped in his arms, watching the fog roll in over a city that no longer held her nightmares, maybe it wasn't impossible after all. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, I'll stay. I'll be your partner. I'll help you build something better. Kelsey pulled back enough to see his face. And I'll use the name. Kelsey Choi. It sounds right. Gi-hun's smile was incandescent. Yeah. She kissed him, pouring 3 months of gratitude and trust and tentative love into the gesture. He responded with equal intensity, his hands tangling in her braids, his body warm and solid against hers. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Kelsey felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing. She'd carry the scars forever. But acceptance, the acknowledgement that she'd survived, that she was more than what had been done to her, that she had a future worth fighting for. I love you, she said. The words felt strange, new, but true. I don't know when it happened. Somewhere between you buying me and you holding me through withdrawal. Somewhere between you letting me shoot you and you walking into hell to save me. I love you, Gi-hun. I know. His expression was tender, devastating. I've known since you drugged my whiskey and then couldn't kill me. Since you took that impossible shot on the bridge. Since you snapped Vane's neck and then fell apart in my arms. I've known, little bird. I was just waiting for you to realize it too. Arrogant. Confident. He kissed her again, deeper this time, with intent that made her pulse kick. And I'll spend the rest of our lives proving I deserve it, proving you made the right choice in staying. How will you do that? By being exactly who I am. By never lying to you. By giving you space when you need it and being there when you don't. By letting you be the dangerous, beautiful, complicated woman you are, without trying to sand down your edges. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her flush against him. And by loving you exactly as you are. Subject Zero and Kelsey and every name and identity in between. Kelsey's defenses, already battered by 3 months of genuine care, finally crumbled completely. She let herself be held, let herself be loved, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have this, could have him, could have a future that was hers to choose. Okay, she said again. Let's do this. Let's build something. Together. Together, Gi-hun echoed, sealing the promise with a kiss. They stood on the balcony as the fog consumed the city, 2 ghosts becoming real, 2 weapons learning to be human, 2 survivors choosing to build instead of destroy. The past was ash. The future was theirs. And Kelsey Robertson, Subject Zero, the ghost, now Kelsey Choi, finally understood what freedom felt like. It felt like coming home.